We had a terrific roundtable on reinventing government procurement. It's a concept that is difficult for average people to wrap their heads around. It is a space that is filled with jargon and acronyms, but it is extremely important to really get America on a functioning and highly developed and modernized technology foundation, something that we're all about here at Reinvent.
One way to get people to stop paying attention to you, roll their eyes, and potentially pass out on the ground is to say the word procurement to them. During the healthcare.gov thing, when that was all melting down, I went on CNN like 3 or 4 times to talk about procurement, and it was CNN's lowest ratings week ever. So coincidence? I think not. So let's talk a little bit about why you should care about this. The first reason you should care about this is because it's really expensive not to care about this. In the past month at the federal level, I can count $2 billion worth of federal IT failures. By failures, I don't mean that they were over budget or they were not on time. I mean, the money would have been better off being set on fire to keep homeless people warm because it was a total failure. The second reason why we should care is because when government isn't good at IT, people start to die. Veterans are dying because we can't get our IT situation over at the VA. We've got Social Security and Medicare IT problems. And if we can't get our IT act together, then it's going to end up in very catastrophic results. And the third reason we should care about this is because it's destroying government's ability to really do its job.
The reason this is getting attention now, finally, is not just that Clay is very charismatic on CNN, which does help. Thanks, Clay. But that the policymakers in D.C. have started to realize after healthcare.gov, this was not the first time they've seen it, it's not the last time they've seen it, but that if you spend an enormous amount of political will to get a policy or a law passed, and it fails on implementation, their ability to govern is in jeopardy.
Maybe folks are familiar with the Air Force's Expeditionary Combat Support System. We spent $1 billion on that program and got literally no usable code out of it after almost 10 years in development. And not one single person was fired. The contractor made more money because it was a cost-plus contract, and the taxpayers are all on the risk for that.
I think I'm seeing a lot of things that are good and bad. The bad news is that the failures at the federal level continue. This issue with the Social Security disability system, Lockheed Martin getting a contract for $300 million and it not working and being years behind. Can you imagine if Social Security had spent $300 million sending people out to get people registered for disability benefits using a pen and paper and pad and came back not having done it?
One of the things about this roundtable was it was really focused on the solutions. It was kind of, let's set aside, we know the problems, you can get problems analysis other places. Let's get to what's working, what can be done, where the through lines are.
The problem is this relationship that government has with business has a very defensive posture to it. And, if I could wave my wand on top of anything, it would be to change that posture from a defensive one to an offensive one. I think it's important to acknowledge that nothing is going to fix procurement. Procurement is not a technical problem. It is a managerial problem.
While there's a lot of components to the reform debate, one of the simple things that's missing is basic accountability.
One of the things I would love to see, and I haven't seen it yet, is some kind of an open process, where people are actually sharing what's working with procurement, where different people could get together and share the best practices.
And so we started talking about how we can work within the system, our procurement system, to see if we could essentially position cities as angel investors. So we all agreed that we could all put up $5,000 each that would enable pretty efficient processes within our individual cities, create a pool of $20,000. So cities can bring what they can to the different solutions that they're seeking to encourage more software developers to then, be allowed in on the other side of the marketplace to see, if there are 20 cities that are putting at a minimum $5,000 up, that's a $100,000 capital pool. So I'm willing to try to develop some kind of solution for these 20 cities.
If you're in a startup and you're getting money to do growth and scale early on in your company's life, how do you dedicate resources to sales and biz dev? Because I think that's one of the biggest challenges. When we see the hockey stick growth, the question is, how the heck are you going to make this happen with government as your customer? Where does that leave kind of new startups that are looking to be agile and potentially pivot as they get to know their customer better?
For better or for worse, there is going to be a big sweeping acquisition reform effort next year done by the House and Senate Armed Services Committees that will affect IT in drastic ways. And I have to tell you right now, there is very little, if almost no participation from outsiders to the system who are talking about some of these issues that you guys are talking about right now. Because right now, the only people submitting comments from industry are the big traditional defense contractor industry associations.
But if the problem is a monolithic approach, and an iterative development process is what we're really trying to bring in there, we can't solve the meta problem with some one shot. There's no silver bullet for this. Lots
of things need to be fixed. We need to be having a yes and strategy. Yes, the registration problem is broken, and the set aside systems are broken, and the past performance systems are broken, and the bid protest systems are broken. It's a big system that needs our constant attention.
The majority of governments interfacing with technology companies comes with custom work in which you're building a website or a database or a particular kind of technology that has to be tailored specifically for government. And that kind of procurement process has its own peculiar problems and difficulties, and also its own kind of solutions too.
I don't know why it is with software requirements and software RFPs that, especially in government, but also in business, the buyer defines the solution. I mean, down to every little feature. If you think about an RFP for a building, the government is not telling you what the building looks like and how many windows it's going to have, and maybe even how many bathrooms it's going to have. They'll tell you how many people it's going to serve and how what they want to facilitate within that building.
I've gone out west to Silicon Valley or traveled to other countries and talked to entrepreneurs who've built billion-dollar companies, or even million-dollar companies, about these kinds of projects. I think, well, I could build that for a tenth of what it actually appears to cost, or less. But I couldn't get through the process, or I didn't want to deal with the process to bid on it.
But there's a third stakeholder here that really needs to get engaged to really solve the procurement process in the long run, and that's the public. General citizens.
It has yet to be the case that someone has made this IT and procurement issue a political problem. Perhaps, maybe an outcome of this roundtable is to, start a political coalition that starts making this a bit more of a liability from a public standpoint for these decisions to get made.
If this doesn't become a political issue, then everyone in this conversation has at some level failed.
We believe that government can work for the people, by the people, in the 21st century, if we make it so. And if you believe that statement, then there are three major stakeholders that have to come to the table with something significantly different than they have previously to make that true. Government has the biggest changes to make here. Companies who are going to have to meet government where if they're getting there, they're going along the way going to have to meet them. And I mean a different set of vendors, and also understanding how government works. It's not going to happen without pressure from the public and without the public starting to understand this more because they care about their government working.
I mean, we have to have faith. And we have to, the people that are scared to come out here or that don't think it's worth it, getting into the government work, it's like we have to roll up our sleeves and believe that we can do it. And we have to go here to the Beltway and say, look out, we're going to change it. We have to transform it.